Just kidding. Hi, Internet, it's your boy, the True Dark Magician, back again on another adventure. And today we're up in Boxborough at the Northeast Comicon and Collectors Expo. So strap yourselves in, Internet, get excited. I'm here with a guy that helped define my childhood. A man that worked with two of the creators of the Ninja Turtles.
I'm Steve Lavigne, Ninja Turtle artist. Here doing an interview.
Okay, so tell us how did you get started in the comic book industry, first of all?
Well, I was very fortunate. I went to high school with one of the two gentlemen that created the Turtles, Kevin Eastman.
You went to school with Kevin Eastman?
So Kevin and I, I was very different. I wanted to work at Mad Magazine, that type of stuff, but he suckered me into working on the Turtles, and that's kind of how I got my in. I literally almost walked from high school into doing the Turtles.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about your experiences at Mirage with Eastman and Lair, and those early days of the Turtles' inception.
Yeah, well, it was a lot of fun. So in the early days, Kevin and I lived together, and my bedroom was actually Mirage Studios. It was where the copier was, the desk was, and everything was in my bedroom.
I think I remember hearing about that in the Turtle Power documentary.
Yeah. So that was my bedroom, and me and Kevin had an apartment. Pete at the time was married, so him and his wife Janine had a place. So when I first started, Kevin was doing the lettering on the comic books. Did not like doing it, and asked me if I wanted to try my hand at it. And I swear anybody else that happened to be there at that moment would have gotten the job as well. But I had to practice a little bit and meet Pete, and then I was kind of in as a letterer on the early Turtle book. So I started on issue 5.
Issue 5. Now, what issue was that? That was
the first issue that had a full color cover. It was the first issue that was actual true comic book size, not oversized. Mm-hmm. So that was kind of my in. It was issue 5 was the first colored cover, and I took over the lettering job at the studio.
Oh, okay. So tell us a little bit about the process working at Mirage, creating the Turtles, coming up with stories like that. Because I've read a bunch of these early Turtle stories, and they get out there. They go out there.
Yeah, well, I mean, again, with Kevin and Pete were trying to do anything they could with these 4 guys from the sewer. But the early days, I mean, we all kind of wore any hats. Like when there was graphic novels, I painted graphic novels. So Kevin and I assisted Kevin on the first graphic novel when they decided to do them in color, and by the second graphic novel, they asked me to completely take over that job, at coloring. So there's a lot of different things going on at Mirage at different times. Kevin and Pete working on the regular title stuff was already happening in other places with like the graphic novels and different things like that, which was kind of interesting. So as the jobs grew, the studio grew. We kept adding new guys to the studio. Ryan Brown, Jim Lawson. Jim Lawson was the next addition. Then we got Mike Dooney. Then we got a Ryan Brown. So we just slowly grew the studio from there. Dan Berger, Steve Murphy as a writer. So
yeah, I met Jim Lawson. I met Jim Lawson years ago, and I see him every year. He comes to Springfield for BingCon.
Yep, he does BingCon every year. Yeah, I've never done Bing, but I know Jim does it every single year.
And I interviewed him about his time working there. Now, what I didn't ask him is what was it like when the movie and the TV show came out, when the first movie and then the cartoon came out. What was it like seeing your work up on, seeing like something you helped work on and create up on TV and on the big screen?
It was very strange. I mean, and again, it happened pretty weirdly. Like the cartoon was only supposed to be on for a week.
Right.
You know, so we were more excited about the toys getting made, that the toy license happened, than the cartoon happened, because we knew there was going to be some longevity in the toy store a little bit. But it was weird. It was definitely very strange. And I was telling somebody earlier, you know, it seems like it should be more entrenched in our brains, but it was weird. Like around that time, it was a question on Jeopardy, and I think I remember that being more exciting than the cartoon coming on TV. And I don't know why that it's weird that way, but you know, it was just the time period. We were like excited about all the other weird stuff because we were working on the Turtles. You know, it didn't seem. It felt like we were still just doing our job, you know, and it was, oh, it's on TV, good, we got to get that done, you know, that feeling a lot of the time, which is wonderful. And again, having the two guys that owned it were the best you could have, you know. We have the creators own their property, so it was wonderful. We did not deal with a lot of corporations, we didn't deal with lawyers for the longest time. It did happen eventually. But, you know, so it was a really creative, fun space to be in, you know.
What have you worked on since? What have you worked on since the Turtles?
I'd like to say a whole bunch of other stuff. I've done illustrated some children's books and stuff like that, but the majority of stuff that anybody would know is Turtles, and I still do them. I just did some stuff for the Shredder's Revenge video game. I do a lot of covers for either shops or IDW. I was doing the Adventure series for a while, covers and stuff like that. So do a lot of cover work and anything I get asked to do. You know, I had the luxury of doing a Last Ronin cover with Kevin, and we hadn't worked together for many years, and I reached out to him and just said, hey, let's do issue 5, which was supposed to be the last Ronin, although now they're doing another series, but it was supposed to wrap up the series, so I was kind of excited that, hey, we can do a Last Ronin piece together. So
all right,
it was fun.
And if anybody wanted to find you online or on social media, where can they go?
You can find me on Facebook at Shellbackartworks and on Instagram at Shellbackartworks.
Okay.
I'm on Twitter, but I don't do any of that. So, and Shellbackartworks on Facebook gets more cool stuff posted. I do the Instagram, and I'm horrible, but I do put art in it. I usually put up art I'm working on, commissions for people or something like that, or sneakers.
That's where the money is.
Well, hold on, I'll show you why.
Oh yeah.
And they're Lavigne signature model. So
cool.
Yeah, I do some work with this gentleman Tom Bullman, who does custom sneakers.
That is nice.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for talking to me.
Sure.
All right. Have a nice. Hey Internet, back again, and today I'm sitting down with Keith Champagne, an amazing inker and artist. So we're going to talk about just who you are, what you do, where you're from, and what you love.
Let's go on this journey together.
Yes, let's do that. So the first thing I'd like to ask is, how did you get started in the comic book media?
Well, let's see. Long story long, I was always the kid in school that never paid attention, and I spent a lot of time drawing my notebooks instead of doing my homework and things like that. Went to regular college, and my fine arts teacher was like, "Why are you here? We're not teaching you what you want to know, which is drawing these dumb comic books."
God, I wish my teachers would say that to me.
And so she inspired me to nut up and to apply to the Kubert School. And so I got into the Kubert School in 1991, and I, in my second year at the Kubert School, I met a couple of people that were working in the industry, and they started hiring me to do background inks for them. And by my third year, I had gotten hired by Marvel as my own solo inking act, and I've been doing it ever since.
Real quick, let me check out one thing. All right, so what were some of the first titles you worked on when you got into Marvel?
Well, with Marvel, the first book I did was Excalibur, and then Uncanny X-Men, and then for about 6 months I bopped around to different X books in that office, and then simultaneously DC had hired me to ink Deathstroke as a monthly, and I kind of went from Deathstroke to the Titans very quickly, and then spent the next like 23, 24 years at DC full time. And now I just kind of tomcat around. Right now I'm doing a job for Marvel. Got my own little publishing company, and we do a lot of work on Stranger Things for Dark Horse. Whatever looks interesting, then it comes my way.
All right, so backing up a little bit, you worked for Marvel and DC at the same time. What was that like?
Well, it was pretty stressful at the time because I was still very new to the business and very much trying to make a reputation as someone that could meet deadlines and do quality work. And I had too much work to do, more than I was capable of really producing at the time. It seems to have worked out okay in the long run, but I remember like a lot of times at 3 in the morning, having not slept for 2 days, like freaking out, having panic attacks, like trying to figure out how am I going to get this done, what am I going to do. But it all worked out. I lived, and the books got done, and I'm still here.
All right, so what were some of your favorite characters? You mentioned you did a lot of X-Men. That's full of characters, full of like beloved characters that a lot of people all over the world know. What were some of your favorite characters?
Yeah, I mean, I did a lot of X-Men stuff for a short period of time, and then I haven't touched them since. With DC, which has been the bulk of my professional career, I loved working on the JSA. I had a nice 4-year run on JSA. I got to write some of it too. Green Lantern, had a long run on Green Lantern. I had a good time writing Green Lantern also. Superboy was a fun time with the pencil at Pascal Ferry. I had a really good time working with him. I got to work with John Byrne. I wrote a story for John Byrne and draw for DC, a Green Lantern story. That's probably the highlight of my whole career. So yeah, I guess those are the main ones. And then, luckily I've been able to do 5 or 6 creator-owned books so far, and I hope to keep pushing in that direction and tell my own stories.
Tell us a little bit about those. Your creator-owned titles.
Well, I mean, the first one I did was called Armor X for Image, and that was about 15 years ago. Then there was one called Death Valley. It was basically cowboys versus ninjas set in the Old West, and no one noticed that one. Then I did a book called The Switch. Kickstarter has been great as a way to get these projects off the ground. That's where I'm doing most of my creative stuff now. I did The Switch. I did a book called Daybreak through Kickstarter. I have a book called Frankenstein Private Eye through Kickstarter with Dev Madan, who drew Young Heroes in Love with me. A book called The Jump, The Defense. Like there's a bunch of stuff coming up next year that I can't wait to get out to people.
Damn, man, that's cool.
Thanks.
So, what would you say to people that want to go down that indie path, that creator-owned path? Like, what advice would you give them to get started?
Just do it. Like everyone, you don't need anyone's permission to make a comic book anymore. Not that you ever did, but there are so many more avenues in the indie world to get your work out there, whether you just publish it digitally on your own website, or you do a crowdfunding campaign to raise money to print your book. There's no excuse not to do it. If you love it and you want to do it, sit down and do it. It's not going to get done by itself. So you can sit there and dream about it all day, or you can sit down and actually put the work in and create something that you really love. I'm all for creating something that you really love.
I'm sensing a pattern between all the people I've asked that question to. It's just say, shut up and do it.
Yeah, basically, that's what it is. I mean, especially it's so easy if you're a writer. It's so easy now to find an artist. And vice versa through the internet. There's so many people that are hungry to create comic books and are always looking for people to collaborate with or to team up with on different projects. it's it's a golden age for indie comics. All the good stuff is coming from the indie world. All the most creative stuff is coming from the indie world these days.
Yeah, like in the those streaming services, they buy it up because they wanna be in on this universe. They want to get that IP and make that content because, of course, they overstretch themselves with all their subscriptions, and it's like, oh shit, now we actually have to provide them with stuff to watch.
Yeah, it's crazy. You got to keep feeding the monster. Like there are so many outlets that
God.
need content to create.
I just love that term, feed the monster.
Yeah, it's true.
That is just how it
And
is.
there are so many monsters out there now. There's so many services that they need content. And especially like something, if it's a comic book first, it's almost as if somebody validated it as being worthwhile already. And it takes an element of risk out of it. Like, oh, someone else believes enough in this thing to make a comic book out of it. So therefore, it's easier for an executive at a streaming service to say, oh, well, there must be something real here. It's less risky for me to bring this in and try to create it, or try to, recreate it for television.
Yeah. Okay, so thank you for taking the time out. I know you're a busy man, but thank you for talking to me. Now, if anybody watching this wanted to find you or your stuff online or any of your social media, where could they go?
The best starting point is the pretentious Keith Champagne on Instagram. And that has links to a couple other things where I spread out around the world, little ripples around the pond. So that's a good starting point, and then you can find the rest of me from there.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk
Good talking
to us.
to you, buddy.
Good talking to you. So, what's up, Internet? We're back again, and if you ever wondered who's responsible for the zombie craze in America, look no further, because I've got Arthur SUYDAM here, the Zombie King.
Greetings from Boston.
What's up? So, Mr. SUYDAM,
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about who you are, where you're from, what you do, and what you love.
What would you like to know?
Let's start at the beginning. How'd you get into comic books?
Reading them as a kid, just the same as everybody else. Read them, then you start drawing them. What I work on Marvel Zombies. I did all the Marvel Zombies initially. We did some work on The Walking Dead. I'm the artist for Deadpool, Black Panther, Moon Knight, Army of Darkness, Red Sonja, Vampirella. Yeah. I've become like the go-to guy for horror, really, in the business.
All right, so how did you get into the industry initially? Where how did you get your foot in the door? Where did you start?
For me, there's no door. It was, when you graduate high school, it's time to go to work. You figure out what is it you know how to do. There were a couple things skills that I had that I knew how to do. Drawing being one of them. I was a professional musician. I was just wrapping up my tennis career. I had a professional tennis career, and then I drew and wrote comics. And so as soon as I went to Warren Publishing, they hired me on the spot when I was in high school. I went to DC Comics, they hired me on the spot. So as soon as I showed them the work, they all hired me. I'm told that I'm the first guy that did painted comics. So I'm the guy that introduced painted work in comics. I did that in Heavy Metal magazine, and then later on in Epic Illustrated.
Oh. So let's talk Marvel Zombies. How did that happen?
How did that happen? That happened that coincidentally there was a little known writer had a little independent comic called Walking Dead that not too many people were reading. I think the readership was like 2,000 people or something. He went to Marvel to do some work for Marvel, and at the same time I was at Marvel, and I just finished up a series called Hellstorm, Son of Satan for Marvel, and they saw that, wow, here's two guys that are really good at horror, let's put them together on something. So we got put together on Marvel Zombies, and the rest is history.
Oh, wow. Okay, so let's talk about. God damn it. Let's talk about. You were telling me a little bit about before we started, a little bit about your family history.
Yeah.
Coming over here in the 1600s.
Right.
That's
From Holland, yeah.
That's usually not something you get from a comic book artist.
Not at all. Not at all. Yeah, I'm classically trained. So yeah, my family came over in the 16th century to fight in the Hudson River Wars to open up a trading post. They ended up establishing the trading post. The trading post ended up becoming New Amsterdam, and New Amsterdam ended up becoming New York. So around at the advent of the Civil War, there were a collection of about a dozen painters, fine art painters, landscape painters, that won American Fine Artist recognition for the first time worldwide. You know, it used to be thought that the only good artists are from Italy and France, and a little bit in England. That was until these Hudson River School painters came along. One was James SUYDAM, another one was Henry SUYDAM. And later on, at the early 20th century, America's foremost architectural artist was E.H. SUYDAM. So I'm the latest SUYDAM. I'm the guy that my work was incidental in starting the whole zombie craze.
All right. So you also worked on another series that I have read and enjoyed a great deal. You worked on the Batman Predator crossover.
That's correct.
How did that like come to be?
You know, they called me up. And asked me to work on the project, and that's considered one of the top 3 Batman series of all time. Back in 1991, yeah, DC called me up. It was an interesting affair trying to do work with DC at that time. You know, I started working for DC doing House of Secrets, working for Joe Orlando, who was an EC Comics artist, and he became the editor for all the horror books at DC. So I was working with him probably in the 70s and 80s. I said as soon as there was an opportunity to do painted work, which started in Heavy Metal magazine, I jumped ship and went there, and then I did the same thing for Epic Illustrated, which is really where I stayed, because I wanted to do painted work and write my own stuff, which I did. I did the Charlie Flytrap and Mudwogs and a bunch of short horror stories for those guys, and so everybody knew my work in the business. And so DC at that point in the 90s, 1991, called me up and asked me to do the Batman with Predator series.
Okay, so are you working on anything now? Are you working on any like independent things, or
yeah,
are you?
I'm booked full, so I'm always booked full time. So I'm booked 7 days a week. So I just did about 35 covers for Dynamite Entertainment this past year. I did a bunch of the Misfits album covers. I've been doing work for those guys since the 1980s. Right now I'm working on a big heavy metal project, a heavy metal band project from LA. Yep, that's what I'm working on right now.
Well, that all sounds good. Now, if anybody wanted to find you online or your social media, where can they go?
On YouTube. YouTube is the best place.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't do social media really, but there's all kinds of stuff on me on YouTube, basically. On Google and on YouTube, they can find me. I'm all over the place.
All right. Well, yeah. So once again, Internet, we've come to the end of another great convention. This one marking the end of the convention season for me for 2022. But don't worry, I'll be back next year in 2023, provided nothing horrific happens to shut the world down again. I'll be back on the convention circuit, bringing you all the great footage you know and love. So until next time, big thanks to everybody that participated in this video. Keith Williams, Keith Champagne, all the other people whose names I can't think of off the top of my head because I'm so tired and defeated. But thanks again. All their information and links to their social media will be in the description below, so check that out. And if you like what you see and you want to see more, I've included links to all past videos. So until next time, Internet, until next time, be good to one another, be good to yourselves, and as always, keep unboxing. Bye.